And just leave some there in case people walk in. Okay, so this course will provide practical guidelines for observing the laws of the Shemitah year in one's home, garden, and the public square. Through this journey into the world of Shemitah, we will examine the tension between the Torah's idyllic vision of Shemitah and its practical implementation today, and the very real challenges of living in an age of redemption. Okay, so between utopia and reality. That's the course. Now, schedule of topics. These are, again, tentative. We're going to start with a biblical perspective on Shemitah. That's this week and next week. The medium is the message, Shemitah and the Torah, the rationale behind Shemitah, Tamei HaMitzvot. Then we get into halachic aspects of Shemitah, gardening and hydroponics and hothouses and eating Shemitah produce and how to treat Kiddushat Shvi'it. Then we move on to part 3, which is Jewish thought. And what's interesting about Shemitah is that it connects to so much. It's a really big idea that connects to many different aspects of Jewish thought and practice. So Shemitah and Jewish economic theory, socialism, capitalism, and communism. Shemitah and Jewish perspectives on ecology and climate change. Shemitah and Jewish perspectives on leisure and recreation. Shemitah is a Shabbaton, it's a year off. So we're going to talk about that. Shemitah and Jewish perspectives on communal space. How do you fulfill the mitzvot of Shemitah in a city? Right? Does Ranana have to follow what we do in our gardens? What do you do if you're in a dira mishutefet? You have a lot of different owners. What do you do about the garden? So these are some of the questions that we'll speak about. Shemitah and Jewish perspectives on charity and income inequality, also Shemitah related. Shemitah and Jewish perspectives on animal rights. As we'll see, some of the produce of the field is meant for animals to eat. We'll talk about that as well. Shemitah and Jewish perspectives on emunah and faith in times of struggle. It's a very important Shemitah theme. Shemitah and establishing the borders of Eretz Yisrael. That's going to be relevant. Minhag HaMakom, eating in someone else's home. What do you do if you follow some minhagim of Shemitah and somebody else follows others? Can you eat at their home? Can you eat at their simcha? Can you eat at their restaurant? And then Yovel, the Jubilee year in Jewish, obviously, and in Western thought. That's 1, 2, 3. I should also add that we'll do something related to Shemitah and Jewish perspectives on slavery. Slaves go free in the 6th year, and also in Yovel, so we'll talk about that as well. Then we'll get to Shemitah in modern times. Otsar Haaretz, for those of you who know what that is, religious ideal or stumbling block. And then the controversy over Heter Mechira, which will be a number of weeks. Then we get to Shmitat Ksafim, the authentic biblical view of Shmitat Ksafim, the pros bowl and the strength and limits of rabbinic authority. And finally, after Pesach, if we make it to after Pesach, Bezrat Hashem we will, practical seminar on Hafrashat, Trumot, and Ma'asrot. So we'll expand beyond just Shemitah to how to take Trumot and Ma'asrot for your own produce. Okay, any questions about the course, the schedule, the content? Yes, Karen.
You have not included greenhouse growing, matzah.
Okay. So I should have put in flower pots, hothouses, and greenhouse. Nachon. I should have put in greenhouses as well. Thank you for the correction. Okay. Any other questions or comments about the course? Yeah. Okay. Beseder. I just want to get a quick drink of water. Apologies that I forgot to get before I started. Okay, I'm just going to fill my water.
Is the screen supposed to turn that way? No. Just throw the cold water?
Yeah, cool.
It's taken from here. Okay. No, it's good.
Okay, so good.
Okay, oops, that... cancel. Apparently, if you pause, it... Okay, we'll just start again very briefly. Boker Tov, we're here at Matan, starting a course between Utopia and reality, the Shemitah year, and Jewish thought and practice. On the first list of the first page of the source sheet, you have a list of the different topics that we'll study. Studying the aspects, biblical aspects, halachic aspects, machshava aspects of Shemitah in modern times, and this is you can take a look at the course outline, which is here in the beginning of the source sheet. So again, as I mentioned, Shemitah is a really big idea, and it connects to so many different aspects of Judaism, and that's why we're going to use Shemitah as a jumping off point.
Oh, just like, I thought you pushed all the buttons.
We're gonna use Shemitah to discuss a number of different issues in Jewish thought: Jewish economic theory, Jewish perspectives on charity, income inequality, ecology, climate change, leisure and recreation, emunah, and the Jubilee year in Western thought. So a lot of different exciting topics. Let's start with Shemitah as it is presented in the Torah itself. Let's start with the basics. Everybody has a source sheet. Go to page 2 of the source sheet. Okay, let's see how the Torah presents Shemitah. And the theme of today's class is the medium is the message. Okay? So the way the Torah presents Shemitah is going to reflect a lot upon this, the essence, the meaning of Shemitah. Okay, the medium is the message. So let's look at Vayikra Perek Kaf Hei. This is the locus classicus where Shemitah is mentioned. It's mentioned in other places as well in the Torah, which we'll analyze next week, Be'ezrat Hashem. But here it is mentioned. Thank you. This is the primary place where it's mentioned. Let's read in the Psukim. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe behar Sinai lemor. Hashem speaks to Moshe from Har Sinai. Now that phrase, behar Sinai, is going to be very significant. Daber al bnei Yisrael, speak to the Jewish people. Ve'amarta alehem, and tell them, ki tavo el haaretz, when you enter the land, asher ani noten lachem, that I'm bequeathing to you, that I'm giving to you. V'shavita haaretz Shabbat Hashem, and the land will rest, a Shabbat for Hashem, dedicated to Hashem. Now, can anybody tell me, this is Parshat Bahar, Vayikra Perek Kaf Hei, this is the end of Sefer Vayikra. What year is this in Jewish history? Where are the Jewish people right now? Where are they? Location. They're not in Arvot Moab yet. No. Where are they?
They're in Sinai. They're 7 weeks out of Egypt.
They're in the Midbar. Okay.
Sinai is exactly 7 weeks after Yetziat Mitzrayim.
Okay, so we'll talk about that. What the exact date is, but right now they are in the Midbar. And the end of Vayikra, okay, means that they've left Har Sinai. Okay, they've left Har Sinai, or they're no longer. They already received the Torah. Let's suffice it to say they've already received the Torah. And Moshe is talking to Hashem. How is Moshe talking to Hashem these days? Anybody know? Twitter, Facebook, like what? WhatsApp, like what are they? Are they messaging each other? How do they talk? Through the Mishkan, through the Ohel Moed. The beginning of Vayikra means that Moshe is talking to Hashem through the Ohel Moed. Okay? So we're going to talk about this, but suddenly at the end, we seem to have a change in location to Har Sinai. And that's going to be significant. Let's keep reading about what happens during Shemitah. Sheish shanim tizra sadecha. 6 years you should plant in your field. V'sheish shanim tizmor karmecha. And for 6 years you should, anyone know what tizmor is? You should prune your grapes, your grapevines, whatever it is. Ve'asafta et tvuata. You gather in your produce. Uvashana hashvi'it, and in the 7th year, Shabbat Shabbaton yeh la'aretz. In the 7th year, it's going to be a year of total, complete rest for the land. Shabbat la'Hashem, it's a Shabbat for Hashem. Sadacha lo tizra. You should not plow in your field. You should not plant in your field. And don't prune your vineyard. By the way, pruning by your vineyard, I actually watched a video about this. There's a very specific way you have to prune a vineyard. Okay, if you want to produce the right grapes. I mean, you really need experts for this. It's not like you just go into your garden and you cut off a branch or two and you say, okay, the tree will, this branch is blocking up. You have to, there's specific ways to prune it so that the grapes, that come out are the grow are really as good as possible, as tasty as possible. We continue. But grapevines here is representative of all trees. Okay, so it's all trees that you can prune. That which grows on its own, you may not harvest. Don't gather in the grapes. It should be a year of rest for the land. And this year will be a year for you to eat, and for your servant, and for your maidservant, v'lischircha, and you're the person who's working for you, v'toshavecha hagarim imach, those who live with you. V'levehemtecha u'lechaya asher ba'artzecha tiah kol tzvata le'achol, and all the animals in the field will also eat the produce of the field. Okay, so can you, in one sentence, if you were walking down the street and someone asked you, what is Shemitah? I have no idea what Shemitah is. What do you do? What happens during Shemitah based on this? No, what happens? What are we not doing and what are we doing? No? We're not planting. What else are we not doing? We're not harvesting. We're not gathering. We're not pruning. We are not working the land. Notice certain milachot are missing here. It doesn't say anything about plowing. Doesn't say anything about what about watering your garden, right? What about planting in flower pots? Okay, these are going to be questions that come up. And what about weeding? What about getting rid of weeds in your garden? What about removing stones? What about what about smoothing out the ground? All these things are not mentioned, and we will get to them at some point. But these are the milachot. These are the primary things that one is not allowed to do during Shemitah. Yes?
Would they not be included in watering the land?
So they are by extension, and they become rabbinic prohibitions, if not Torah prohibitions. That's generally where we go. Now, can anybody tell me any key words that keep coming up in these few psukim? It's called the milah mancha, leitmotif. Any key words that just keep coming up? Shabbat. Any connection to Shabbat?
7th year.
Okay, 7th year parallels the 7th day of the week. Yafeh. That's very clear. And just like you can't work on Shabbat, you also don't work during the Shemitah year. Yafeh ma'od. Good. Okay, so this is the Torah's presentation of Shemitah. Now let's look at the Torah's presentation of the next set of laws, which is Yovel. Yovel is the Jubilee year. Pasuk Chet. V'safarta lecha sheva Shabbatot shanim. Now count 7 cycles of Shemitah. Sheva shanim, sheva pa'amim, 7 times. Vayu lecha sheva Shabbatot hashanim tesha v'arba'im shana. It's going to be 49 years. Ve'avarta shofar teruah b'chodesh hashvi'i. And you blow the shofar in the 7th month. What days do we blow the shofar? Ba'asor lachodesh. And what day is that? B'yom HaKippurim. Taviru shofar b'chol artzachem. Do we do this anymore?
No.
You don't blow the shofar on Yom Kippur?
In the end.
We do. That's what this is, no?
Not for the Yovel.
Yeah, we don't do it for the Yovel. We blow it every year, and some argue this is in commemoration of what we used to do during Yovel. You understand? We only did it every 50 years. Now we do it every year to remember what we did every 50 years. V'kidashtem et shnat ha-chamishim shana. And you shall sanctify the 50th year. Ukiratem derur ba'aretz. And, establish a year of freedom of the Kol Yoshveh for all of its citizens. Yovel hi tialachem, you'll have a Yovel. V'shavtem ish el achuzato, v'ish el mishpachto tashuvu. Everybody returns to their ancestral land. This actually means 2 things. V'shavtem ish el achuzato, all the slaves go free. Even the slaves who have decided by their own volition to do a nirtzah, to pierce their ear and become a slave for the longer term, even that person, we're talking about Jewish slaves here, they all go free during Yovel. Okay? Every slave goes free. And ancestral lands are returned to their original owners. So let's say I buy Devorah's estate, okay? And I buy it, and 25 years pass. Yovel year comes, guess what? You get your land back. Okay, it's a good deal, huh? So Yovel hi shnat ha-chamishim shantilachem lo tizra'u. This is a year of Yovel. Don't plant. Lo tiksor, don't harvest. Etzivichev lo tivtzeru ad nesireha, and do not gather in. Ki Yovel hi kodesh telachem min hazet tachlu atzvata b'shnat Yovel zot tashuvu ish al achuzato. This is Yovel. Okay. Primary. Can someone tell me? You're walking down the street. Someone sees you. Tell me, what's Yovel? What would you say to them? Jubilee year, which means what? Okay, it's Shemitah of Shemitah. It's like Shemitah squared. Nachon. But something new happens during this year. What new happens during this year? Can anybody tell me?
All the land goes back to the original.
all the land goes back to its original owner, which does not happen during Shemitah. During Shemitah, your land becomes what's called hefker. Okay? During Yovel, it literally goes back to the original owners. Okay? And what about in terms of slaves? All slaves go free. This is the Torah's presentation of Shemitah and Yovel. Would you suggest that these two mitzvot are connected to each other? Just based on the context. Yes, Adele, you think so? Yeah, how come?
They're all part of the same picture.
Okay, nachon, it's 7 times 7 leading up to the Yovel year, nachon. Little did you know, they're even more connected than you might have thought. Okay, and we'll see this a little bit later on. Now, so this is the Torah's presentation of these two things. Now, I want to throw out a very basic question. Why does the Torah say that this was given specifically at Har Sinai? This is the end of Sefer Vayikra, okay? And if you just look at the psukim here for a second, if you look at, for example, go to page 3, okay, look at Vayikra Perek Aleph. Okay, this is the third source on page 3. Vayikra el Moshe, Vaydaber Hashem elav me'ol moed le'mor. At the beginning of Vayikra, Hashem no longer speaks to Moshe from Har Sinai. He's speaking to him from the tent of meeting. Okay, the ol moed. So this is Hashem speaking to Moshe at the ol moed. And yet at the end of Sefer Vayikra, we seem to go back in time. Go back in time. And then suddenly it's Vaydaber Hashem Moshe b'Har Sinai. What is the reason the Torah is telling us that Shemitah and Yovel were given at Har Sinai? Okay? Anybody want to take a guess? What do you think?
We have to follow Shemitah, like we have to follow all the Torah.
You have to follow all the Torah. Okay, but this could be true of anything. Tell us everything was given at Har Sinai. Why specifically Shemitah and Yovel are we being told that it was given at Har Sinai? I want you to think like a biblical commentator. Yes, Karen.
What happened between Moshe and Hashem and the Ohel Moed was private, it was between them. What happened in Har Sinai was public in view of the entire Kahal.
Okay, so therefore what? Why is this?
No doubt about the authenticity of it.
Okay, we have questions about the authenticity. Interesting. Okay. Hi Sue, how you doing? Okay, that's an interesting question. Okay, possibly. Yeah.
Maybe because it's something that has to do with the land that they might think. Never mind.
Extra source sheets are over there. If you,
Cancel that.
yeah. Say again, it might be.
No, I didn't complete the thought and I got lost.
Okay, no problem. When it comes back, you can. Okay. So we have to understand what is the connection between Har Sinai and Shemitah. Okay. Now the way that Chazal phrase this, they say Ma inyan Shemitah etzel Har Sinai. Ma inyan. I'm going to write this on the board. Okay. So for those of you on Zoom, okay, just Ma inyan Shemitah etzel Har Sinai. What is the connection between Shemitah and Har Sinai? Now, this is so interesting. I was once looking at a Hebrew dictionary. This phrase appears in a Hebrew dictionary. Okay, and I'm going to quote a friend of mine, Rabbi Shmuel Hain, who was telling me he was once watching a show by the name of Kojak. Does anybody here know it? Oh, yeah, everyone here knows what everyone here is American, essentially. Okay, you know what Kojak is, okay? So Kojak was an American detective show, and he was watching it in Israel. Okay, Rabbi Shmuel Hain is a rabbi in Riverdale. And he was telling me that there was a line in the show, and it says, what does it have to do with the price of tea in China? Okay? Now, the translation and the bottom of the show said, Ma inyan Shemitah etzel Har Sinai. Okay? So you could even learn Torah when you're watching the TV shows in Eretz Yisrael. Okay? But this has become a phrase in our modern parlance of, what does this have to do with that? Shemitah and Har Sinai, what is the connection between these two things? אני אנסה, אבל הם גם צריכים להיות סבלנים. Okay. Tough. This is what the Torah says about Shemitah here. But now we're going to skip forwards to Vayikra Perek Kavav. Okay, Vayikra Perek Kavav. Now, this is the next parasha. Not Parashat Behar, but but it's Parashat Bechukotai. Vayikra Perek Havav. And if you look at the source sheet on page 2, this is the second source on the source sheet. Okay? Now, anybody know Behar Bechukotai? Do those two, does that ring a bell? Behar Bechukotai? Yeah, Moshe, why does that ring a bell? Very often, not every year, but very often we read these two parshiot together. Behar and Bechukotai are the two last prakim of parshiot of Sefer Vayikra. And often, most of the time, they are read together. Is this just for logistical, for practical reasons? Is there some connection between them? Let's see what it says in Parshat Bechukotai. Tell me generally, what is Parshat Bechukotai about? No? Anybody? What is Parshat Bechukotai about?
About keeping the law.
It's about, no, what's it about? Huh? Not about Shemitah, it's about reward and punishment. More punishment than reward. Okay? This is the first time the klalot, the terrible curses, are mentioned. If you don't follow the Torah, so there's a whole list of terrible, terrible things that are going to happen to us. Okay? And it's scary to go through them. I mean, just in Vayikra Perek Havav. Now, the Torah is going to give us an explanation of why we deserve such punishment. Let's look at Vayikra Perek Havav. And just to give you, this is the worst line of it all. In Kavav Kaftet, Va'achaltem basar b'neichem v'basar b'notechem tochelu. You're going to eat the flesh of your children. Okay? It's really gruesome. Okay? Chas v'shalom, lo aleinu. והשמדתי את במותיכם והכרתי את חמניכם ונתתי את בגריכם על פגרי גילוליכם וגאלה נפשי אתכם. Hashem says, listen, I'm going to destroy all of your altars for idol worship and your corpses, and I will find you revolting, Hashem says. ונתתי את עריכם חרבה. Okay, and I will destroy your cities. והשימותי את מקדשכם. I will destroy your Batei Knesset, or whatever it is. I will not receive your korbanot anymore. I will destroy, I will make desolate Eretz Yisrael. And enemies will come and plunder the land. And I will scatter you and disperse you amongst the nations. And I will cause destruction. The sword will come after you. Your land will be destroyed and desolate, and etc. Az tirtzeh lamedaled, az tirtzeh haaretz et shabbatoteha. And then the land will yearn for what? For its shabbatoteha. What's shabbatoteha? It's Shemitah. The land's going to finally get to rest a little bit. Kol yemei hashaman, all the years of desolation. V'atem be'eretz oivechem, az tishbot ha'aretz v'hirtzeit et shabbatoteha. All the years that you're out of the land will rest, will take it easy, and it will catch up on its lost Shabbatot. Kol yemei hashaman tishbot et shalosha shavta b'shabbatotechem b'shiftechem aleha. All the years that you didn't let the land rest during Shemitah, now the land is going to rest. והנשארים בכם והבאתי מורח בלבבם בארצות אויביכם ורדף אתם כל עלי נדף ונשאו מנוסות חרב ונפלו ואין רודף. And whoever remains from you will be plundered and killed, and in the land of the non-Jews. Okay, now, so this is the second time in the Torah essentially that Shemitah is mentioned. So now we're starting to get a slightly better picture of. Well, there's Bahar, Parshat Bahar, which discusses Shemitah and Yovel. And then there's Bechukotai, which also sort of pulls in, this notion of Shemitah and Yovel. And if we just go to the end of this Parshat Bechukotai, okay, which I have on the source sheet here. If you go to Vayikra Perek Havav, okay, on page 3, Vayikra Perek Havav, Eila hachokim v'hamishpatim. It's the fourth source on page 3. Eila hachokim v'hamishpatim v'hatarot asher natan Hashem beini uveino b'nei Yisrael v'en b'nei Yisrael b'har Sinai bi'ad Moshe. So at the end of Parshat Bechukotai, you have this mention here. These are all the things that Hashem commanded to the Jewish people, in Behar Sinai. So what I'm trying to present here, okay, let me put this down here again for everybody on Zoom. I'm just drawing a picture here on the board. I'm going to actually move this a little bit closer so that everybody can see. See? There we go. I don't want to destroy this. Well, it's not Chodesh the new month anymore, right? We good. Okay, good. Sorry, but okay. So basically, we have Sefer Vayikra, right? Aleph tells us about the Ohel Moed, and then we get to Kaf Hey Aleph, and then we're told about Shemitah, right? Behar Sinai. Okay, and then we have Yovel, etc. Then we get the Parak Vav, and we start the parasha, the Im Bechukotai. And within Im Bechukotai, we have this notion of Az Tirtzeh Ha'aretz et Shabbatoteha. Because you didn't keep Shemitah, all these klalot, Az Tirtzeh Amudis Aretz et Shabbatoteh. So because you didn't keep everything, okay, therefore the Shemitah, because you didn't do Shemitah, this appears to be the causal relationship of why the curses happened. And then at the end here, the last pasuk, which we just read, Kaf Hey, Kaf Vav Mem Vav, says, hey, let's just summarize. These are all the laws that Hashem gave at Har Sinai. Okay? Again, Har Sinai. So we have Har Sinai here in the beginning. And we have Har Sinai mentioned again at the end. Okay? Now, again, Im Bechukotai is really all about the klalot. So what we want to try to do, what I'm trying to show you is that this is one literary unit in the Torah. Okay? This appears to be there's one piece here. Okay? And I want to give you a few proofs of this, and I'm going to explain to you why this is so significant. But we're now emerging at the fundamental question that I want to address today. What we've suggested here is that Shemitah's a mitzvah in the Torah. Don't plow, don't seed, blah, blah. And guess what? If you don't keep Shemitah, you know what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen?
Terrible things.
Everything gets undone. The whole land's going to be destroyed, desolate. You'll be plundered and exiled and thrown out of the land. All because you didn't keep Shnat HaShemitah. All because you didn't keep Shemitah. Yeah.
אתה מסתובב, הם לא רואים אותך, והם לא רואים את הלוח.
לא רואים את הלוח?
It's a problem.
אני זזתי את הלוח.
אתה זז, כן, בסדר, עכשיו יותר טוב.
Okay. Getting into trouble here. בסדר, אני מצטער. Okay, I'm going to try a little better. Apologies. Should just put me in a straitjacket. Just
glue your shoes to the floor.
So okay, Yafeh. So what I'm trying to suggest here is that this is one literary unit in the end of Sefer Vayikra. Okay, and somehow it's linked to Har Sinai, which took place at an earlier stage in the Torah. Now, let me share with you just a few examples of a proof about how integrally connected Parshat Behar is to Bechukotai. Okay, these things are connected. Let me give you a few examples. So if you look at the top of, let's go to the bottom of page 2. Bottom of page 2. Okay? Now what I have here is a chart. This chart, what I'm sharing you now, is some insights from modern biblical commentators. Of Elchanan Samet, Sharon, Rabbanit Sharon Rimon, Rav Yonatan Grossman, done really amazing analysis of this literary unit, and I want to share with you some of the insights. What we're going to try to understand is, based on the Torah's presentation, how important Shemitah is. Okay, we're going to see it's huge. And we're already, the picture is starting to emerge from the fact that all the klalot of Bechukotai seem to be bound to Shemitah. Let's see, for example, the connection between Bahar and Bechukotai. Okay, in Parshat Bahar and Parshat Bechukotai, on the right side is Parshat Bahar, and the left side is Parshat Bechukotai. So it says Va'asitem et Chukotai. So we see there's a lot of literary overlap between these two different areas. So in Parshat Bahar it says, listen, you should fulfill my commandments and my judgments. Tishmru va'asitem otam v'yishavtem al haaretz lavetach. If you fulfill all the mitzvot of Parshat Bahar, then you'll dwell in the land peacefully. Okay, what does it say in Parshat Bechukotai? Im bechukotai telechu, ve'ed mitzvotai tishmeru, v'asitem otam, v'yashavtem lavetach be'artzachem. Again, you will dwell peacefully in the land. There's a very clear connection between these two parshiot. Line number 3, v'natna aretz piyah ve'achaltem lasova. The land will give forth its fruit, you will eat with satisfaction. V'natna aretz yivolah ve'etz zeh yitin piriyo ve'achaltem lachmechem lasova. You will eat with satisfaction. Okay? I have friends on the west side who have a catering company called Sova. Sova, Sveut, Visavata. Okay, that's where it comes from. So we see that there are many linguistic connections between these two parshiot. Okay, so it's not just practically, that Bahar and Bechukotai are next to each other. There's an integral connection between them, Bahar and Bechukotai, and we see some of the linguistic examples here. Let's look at the next page as well. Okay. And on the right side, you have again Parshat Bahar, on the left side, Parshat Bechukotai. In Parshat Bahar, Vishavta haaretz, Shabbat Lashem, Shabbat, Shabbaton yel haaretz, Shabbat Lashem, Shnat Shabbaton. The word Shabbat keeps repeating itself. Parshat Bechukotai as well, as tirtzeh haaretz et Shabbatotea, as tishbot haaretz, v'tirtzah Shabbatotea, kol yemei hashamat tishbot. It's very clear from, again, the use of the word Shabbat, Bahar and Bechukotai are connected. Okay, in this regard. Okay, so what we're seeing here is that what's emerging is that the klalot of Bechukotai are connected to the performance, the fulfillment of the mitzvot of Shemitah. Okay, now let's go back to the question that let's go back to the first pasuk of Parshat Bahar, and we're going to look at the inside in the Sifra and in Rashi. So go to page 3 of the source sheet. And we have Rashi here quoting the Rashi. Rashi Vayikra Perek Kafei Pasuk Aleph Parshat Bahar. Okay, you see it in the middle of page 3. Bahar Sinai. Ma inyan Shmita etzel Har Sinai. What is the connection between Shemitah and Har Sinai? Okay, this is the question that we posed earlier. V'alo kol mitzvot ne'emru b'Sinai. Weren't all of the mitzvot given at Har Sinai? Ella. So this is the reason that Chazal give us. Ma Shemitah ne'emru klalotea. Just like all the general rules and the details and the nuances of Shemitah were given at Sinai, so too all of the klalot and the diktukin were given at Har Sinai. Okay, this is why Shemitah is given extra emphasis to teach us it's a model, it's a representation. That just like Shemitah, all the laws were given in detail at Har Sinai, so too all the laws in the Torah were given in detail at Har Sinai. Kach shnuya b'Torat Kohanim. This is the meaning of this is what Chazal teach us. Now, what I want to share with you is a different explanation, which gets to the root of this issue, a pshat interpretation. Rashi is giving you the midrash. Listen, Shemitah is representative. It's a representative mitzvah. The general rules, the details were given about, of Shemitah, just like all the other mitzvot, 630 mitzvot of the Torah. I want to share with you a whole, altogether different reading of why it says that Shemitah is given at Har Sinai. Okay? We have to look at the larger picture of the Torah. We're going to come to a really fascinating theory here. Okay? Now, in order to understand this, again, we have to understand that, as I mentioned earlier, the Jewish people are already in the Midbar, and Moshe is receiving the Torah from the Olam Moed. So we have to understand, why is this piece, which apparently was given at Har Sinai, presented at the end of Sefer Vayikra instead of where? Where should it be instead? Where should this parasha of Bechukotai and Bahar, where should they be?
In Sefer Shemot?
In Sefer Shemot. Where in Sefer Shemot?
When they were at Har Sinai.
When they were at Har Sinai in Yitro. Yes, Sered HaDibrot are given to the Jewish people. immediately after the Aseret HaDibrot, they receive Parshat Mishpatim, and somewhere there, they should receive the parasha of Behar B'chu Kotai. But somehow the Torah decides, instead of giving it to us in Sefer Shmot, the Torah presents this at the end of Sefer Vayikra. Okay, and we need to understand why the Torah does this and what it's trying to teach us. Now, let's look at the Rashbam. Okay, let's look at the Rashbam, Perek Kafvav Pasuk Mem Vav. Okay, this is the Rashbam. Rashbam is Rashi's grandson. Next source on page 3 of the source sheet. Rashbam is commenting on the end of Parshat Bechukotai, and he says, Bahar Sinai Biyad Moshe. Again, this is that last pasuk that we saw, Kafvav Mem Vav. He says as follows. Shekain hitchila parashat Shmita vaydaber Hashem Moshe Bahar Sinai. Hashem began teaching the laws of Shemitah at Har Sinai. V'gam gamar hatochechot ha'ele b'shvil ha'shmitahim ki dechtiv kol yemei hashama tishbot. And guess what? Everything that happens in Parshat Behar until the end of the Chukotai were also given at Har Sinai. Okay? Yafem od. It's not just Behar, it's also the entire unit of Behar B'chukotai. Okay? Ki dechtiv kol yemei hashama tishbot. Ki kol mitzvot shel Parashat Behar Sinai v'shmitot v'yovlot midaber v'yovlot midavar u'shlichut avadim v'chazarat karkaot lekach ne'emru kan hatochechot shel averot hashmitot bar Sinai hakol b'pam achat. You know what the Rashbam says? All of Behar and Bechukotai were given at Har Sinai. All the mitzvot of Behar. Now, what are all the mitzvot of Behar? Shemitah, Yovel, and there are other mitzvot as well. Al tonu ish et achiv. You can't mistreat your brother in business. You can't loan with interest. All of Parshat Behar and Bechukotai are given at Har Sinai. Now, where are they? Why are they mentioned here and not mentioned earlier? So let's go back to it for a second. Let's look at Sefer Shmot for a second. You have a Tanakh. At least you know what I put it on. Let's look at Sefer Shmot. Open up Sefer Shmot to Perek Kaf Daled of Sefer Shmot. For those of you on Zoom, you could open up a Tanakh to chapter 24 of Sefer Shmot. Okay, 24 of Sefer Shmot. Okay, and this is immediately after the giving of the Ten Commandments. Shmot Kaf Daled. Okay. So if you look at Kaf Daled, so this is after the giving of the Ten Commandments and after the giving of Parshat Mishpatim. Okay, so Moshe goes up to the mountain, they get the Ten Commandments, they get Parshat Mishpatim, and then we're told in Kaf Daled Aleph, 24 Aleph, 24:1, Ve'amoshe amar alei el Hashem. Hashem said to Moshe, come up. Ata ve'aron adav avihu v'shivim miziknei sov hishtachavita merachok. Come and and some of the elders will bow from afar on Har Sinai. V'nigash Moshe levado. Moshe is going to go up alone to Har Sinai. El Hashem v'hem lo yigashu v'am lo yalu imo. And the people won't go up. Vayavo Moshe. Okay, beseder, so Moshe does this. Go to pasuk zayin. Vayikach sefer habrit. Vayikra beoznei ha'am. Vayomru kol asher diber Hashem na'aseh v'nishma. Moshe takes a sefer brit and he tells the people, whatever I tell you, and he tells them the brit, the covenant, and how do they respond? Na'aseh v'nishma. What is the content of the sefer habrit? What is this? So there's a machloket between the parshanim. Rashi suggests this is all of the sefer Breshit up until this point. Everything until Shmot Kaf Daled is what the Jewish people are agreeing to accept. Rav Yonatan Grossman has a new reading of this. He says, you know what the Sefer Habrit is? The Sefer Habrit is everything that's given in Parshat Behar and Bechukotai. That's what the Sefer Habrit is. And all the klalot of Parshat Bechukotai. That's what the Jewish people are agreeing to at Har Sinai itself. Okay? At Har Sinai itself. And now we have an interesting parallel develop. Because whenever you have a brit is a covenant. There are always consequences to a covenant. When else did the Jewish people have a brit? We have a brit Sinai. Where's the other brit that the Jewish people have? Anybody remember? Where else do they have a brit in the Torah?
When they're at Har Gerizim and Har Eitan.
at the end of Sefer Dvarim, they have another brit, Parshat Ki Tavo. They make another covenant there by Har Gerizim and Har Gerizim and Har Yivals in Eretz Yisrael, but in Arvot Moav. And what happens after they make that covenant? They forge that covenant again, klalot. You have curses and a warning that if you don't follow everything, you are going to be, you're going to be exiled from the land. In fact, you're going to go back to Mitzrayim. So whenever you have a covenant, you have curses and a threat that follows after it. Okay, so you have a parallel between what happens in the beginning of the Torah with the beginning of Matan Torah, and also at the end of the Torah and Sefer Dvarim. So what's this picture is starting to come together. Everything that was given at Shemitah, Parshat Bahar and Bechukotai, were given at Har Sinai itself. Why is this significant? What is the significance of the mitzvot of Bahar, Yovel, and Shemitah, that they are incorporated specifically in the covenant of, along with the Aseret HaDibrot, essentially. So let's look at Rav Elchanan Samet, bottom of page 3. Okay, let's read inside here. Okay, bottom of page 3. B'chodesh hashlishi, letzeit b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. In the third month, when the Jewish people left Mitzrayim, ka'asher chanu neged Har Sinai, and they dwelled in relation to Har Sinai. Hitzia la'em Hashem likanes imo bivrit u'lekabel et mitzvotav. Hashem offered them the covenant and to receive his mitzvot. V'atayim shemot tishmo b'koli u'shmartem et briti v'item li sigula mikol ha'amim k'li kol ha'aretz v'atem tiyulim amlech ha'kohanim v'goy kadosh. Hashem said to them, listen, if you follow my laws and you receive my covenant, you will be a holy nation, a priestly nation. Yisrael na'anu b'simcha, the Jewish people respond, we would love to accept the Torah. They had no idea what it was talking about. So they said, yes, of course. We're Na'aseh v'nishma. I'm kidding. And now they receive different sections of the mitzvot. Koma al gabe koma, one group on top of the next. Asher mataratcha la'hafochet b'nei Yisrael l'mamlecha kohanim v'goy kadosh. The purpose of which is to make the Jewish people into a holy nation. Reshit nidu lehem aseret hadibrot. First, they received the aseret hadibrot, the 10 Commandments. Shehin kemo avot lemitzvotah shel Torah. These are like the pillars of the mitzvot. Achar kach nidu lehem mishpatim. Asher noadu la'asdir et yachasei ish imeyo v'litzor chavra metukenet sheba shorerim mishpatei tzedek. Then they're given Parsha Mishpatim, which is about social justice and righteousness and a just society. Now they can build the Mishkan, and this is the rest of Sefer Shemot. Ve'alkein mitztava Moshe amalech al Mishkan. Parshotav rishonot shel Sefer Vayikra. Hemshech yashir hein leparshot hamishkan b'siyuman shel Sefer Shemot. That which is given at the beginning of Vayikra is then a continuation of what they received from the Mishkan. Otorat HaKorbanot, Yotzek HaTochen Shel Avodat HaBimishkan, all the sacrifices, Dinei Tuman, Tahara, purity, impurity. Heim HaMe'afsherim HaTashrat HaShechna BeMishkan. They enable the Torah Hashem to dwell in the Mishkan. Ata midramimut haparshiotav habaot shel Sefer Vayikra dinei kedusha shel kohanim v'shel kol bnei Yisrael. Next page. Uvechein. Ha'im dai b'chol elu kedei shetitkayim b'bnei Yisrael haftacha gdolat atem v'atem tiyulim mamlecha kohanim v'goy kadosh. But do these mitzvot suffice to make the Jewish people a priestly nation? They've received the 10 Commandments. They've received mishpatim. They've received the laws of building the Mishkan. Is that enough to make them a truly holy nation of priests? The answer is no. Chasra adayin chuliyah chiyunit b'chazon zeh. They're missing a fundamental piece to the puzzle. You know what that is? Shehi ulai golet hakoteret shel kol kvutzot hamitzvot sheniknu ad ata. Ein dai ba'am shebein pratav shorim mishpetei tzedek. You know what they're missing? They're missing something really big. You know what they're missing? They're missing something that relates to society at large, not just about interpersonal interactions, but something that goes beyond that, about all of society, but the whole vision, a utopian vision for society. Ein dai ba'am shebein pratav shorim mishpetei tzedek uvemerkazo nitzav mishkan Hashem v'u'ovedet Elohav b'kedusha v'torah. Harei hatochnit Elohit hi lahanchil amod nachalato et Eretz Canaan. Hashem's vision is to bequeath to the Jewish people a land, a whole country. They're going to need to build a whole government, a whole nation. V'sham yilchonenu chevra u'mamlacha shu shonim Shonim mahutim matzavam kenodei mamidbar. They're going to build a nation unlike any other nation, not like they were wandering in the midbar. Mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. Heim amrim liot. V'lo nodei midbar kadoshim hanosim imam mishkan mitkapel laHashem. Now, so the whole point is to build a society, to build a chevra, to build a government, a just society. Am hayoshev al admato ume'abda v'chayei chayim l'umiyim kalkelim ilaim omed lifnei mivchanim chevratim chamerim. The Jewish people have many tests. They got to build the whole nation. It's not just about building a community, an individual or community or a kihila. It's about building something much bigger. Okay? The truth is that we are still in the throes of figuring this out in Medinat Yisrael. We're 73 years, right, into the building of Medinat Yisrael. We're still figuring out, how do we make this place? It's easy to build a beautiful kihila, a family, a Jewish family, a kihila. You could build a JCC. You could have a Jewish federation. You could have, you could have all these things. A Jewish old age home, and you could have all. It's amazing. Kol hakavod. And we've all been part of building these communities in Chutz La'aretz, I'm sure. But to build a society, a whole state, which is dedicated to Torah values, is much more complicated. Diplomacy, economics, social issues, you name it. There are much bigger issues. Coronavirus. Okay, you got to figure this out. An army on a much bigger scale. Okay, politics. So, what Rav Elchanan Samad is suggesting is that the Jewish people were given important things at Har Sinai that were about their interpersonal relationships, connecting to Hashem, the Mishkan, Yafem Od. But they didn't have something bigger which represented the larger vision of building a utopian society. And you know what filled in that void? Those are the mitzvot of Shemitah and Yovel. Okay? So, let's keep reading. עם היושב על אדמתו ומעבדה וחיי חיים לאומים כלכליים מלאים עומד לפני מבחנים חברתיים חמורים. הוא זקוק לחזון חברתי. The Jewish people need a vision. לאומנה אשר תסדיר את חייו הלאומיים בעניינים המרכזיים הקובעים את אופיים של החיים הללו. What is going to help them create a holy society? זהו תפקידה של פרשת בהר. This is the role of פרשת בהר. 57 ל-57 פסוקיה של פרשה קצרה זו הם התוכנית החברתית-כלכלית שמייעדת תורה לעם היושב בארצו. This is the Torah's social justice vision. 57 psukim in Parshat Behar. Okay? This is it. Yovel and Shemitah and everything else that's in Parshat Behar and including Bechukotai. Okay? ורק מכוח קיומם יושלם חזון הברית שנחרתה בסיני בישראל יום המלך הכהנים וכל קדוש. If we fulfill Behar Bechukotai, then we truly become a nation that is holy to Hashem. Okay? Yafeh. So now, what do we see here? We see here that the whole Shemitah and Yovel play a critical role in Brit Sinai. They play a critical role in Brit Sinai because Brit Sinai is not fulfilled without this level of addressing this level of the Jewish people's identity. Where again, we're not just an individual people, we're not just families, we're not a clan, we're not just a kihila, we are a nation, and the laws of Shemitah and Yovel serve as the vision for our nation, and therefore they are at the centerpiece of Har Sinai. Behar Sinai. So in contrast to Chazal's interpretation of why it says that Shemitah and Yovel were given at Har Sinai, we fleshed out a different perspective. This is the Torah's grand vision. And of course, it was integral to the Brit of Sinai itself. Okay, and just like at the Brit in Arvot Moav, there are curses that come at the end if you don't fulfill it. The Chukotai serves as the down. If you don't fulfill it, if you don't do Shemitah, guess what's going to happen? You are going to be exiled from the land. Okay, so much is resting upon Shemitah and Yovel in terms of the punishment and in terms of the fulfillment of the Brit itself. Okay, let me share with you also, let's look at a piece at Rav Kook. Rav Kook picks up on this look at the bottom of page 4. Rav Kook, the Mahalach HaIdiot BiYisrael. This is one of his essays that appears in Orot. Okay, what Rav Kook says here essentially is that the goal of Am Yisrael is to build a just nation. Not in Galut we build communities, we build federations, we build JCCs, We built, you have Jewish pockets and mikvaot and all these different things, but you don't have a Jewish society. Bereshit mata'o she'alam hazeh, asher yada likro b'shem ha'rayon ha'elohi, ha'barur v'ha'tor, beit ha'shoton, ha'kabir shel ha'eliliyut b'tumata perauta, nitgalta ha'shiva lahakim tzibur, enoshi gadol. The true fulfillment of the Jewish people will be, I'm generalizing here in terms of the interpretation. Rav Kook, his wording is usually very poetic and florid, but it's hard to interpret every word. But our true potential is revealed when we build a tzibur enoshi gadol asher yishmor derech Hashem asot tzedakah mishpat. Zoe hashifa. This is the vision. This is the ambition. Sheba mikoach hakara habura v'hazav atvia musarit hakolelet v'harama להוציא את האנושים מתחת סבל נורא של צרות רוחניות וחמרות ולהביאם לחיי חופש מלאי הוד ועדן. ברור הידיעה האלוהית להצליח בזה את כל האדם כולו. In fact, we have a universal vision, according to Rav Kook. And this could only be fulfilled on a national level. Go to the next paragraph. אור הידיעה האלוהית העולה ומזדקק בקרב עם כזה מטביע בו את חייו הלאומיים המלאים פועל ואחר כך בעולם כולו. It's first we need to start with building a nation. And then we move on to building the world. Now, what Rav Kook is saying is very significant. And I saw a piece actually in Rav Shimshon Fal Hirsch on the Torah this week. You know, when Avraham is told, Lech lecha me'artzecha u'mimoladatcha me'beit avicha el art asher ayeka ve'escha utcha legoy gadol. Rav Hirsch says, listen, very often on national issues, nation states do whatever they want. They become very Machiavellian. Okay? So when it comes to their families and their homes, they do, they're very, ethical and they do the right thing. But on a national level, suddenly it's like the playing field totally changes. Okay, how many countries follow the rules of war? How many countries do what Israel does in war to try to save lives? Okay, we see what happens on a national level, diplomacy. What we're aiming for is to bring Torah values and have them inspire a whole nation and ultimately the world. And this is very complicated, and this is what Shemitah and Yovel serve as a model for. Shemitah is at the centerpiece of the Torah's social, economic, national vision, and Rav Kook recognizes, and he's suggesting here in Orot, and by the way, this is the chidush of Rav Kook. Rav Kook is trying to bring back is a sense of nationality, of nationhood. We were in Galut, and we were just small pockets and communities. But now suddenly when we come back to Israel, we have the ability to become a nation again. And that entails new responsibility. And in fact, one of the thinkers that we will focus on in this course is Rav Kook. Rav Kook wrote extensively on Shemitah. Rav Kook was involved with all the controversies surrounding Shemitah for a number of different years when he was chief rabbi and the rabbi in Yafo. And we're going to look at some of his halachic analysis of Shnat HaShemitah. Now, this is explanation number one for the importance why Shemitah and Yovel are specifically linked to Har Sinai. Okay? Now, why are they brought, technically, why are they chronologically presented at the end of Vayikra as opposed to earlier on? Okay, so Rav Samad has a few different explanations. One explanation he suggests is that, he wants to show that, in a sense, everything that was given even in the Oel Moed was important, even though it wasn't given at Har Sinai, and therefore this piece comes after to show that everything before was sort of all part of this Sinaitic revelation, even though it's in the Oel Moed. Okay, that's a technical question why it appears at the end of Vayikra. But the point is, and this is the key point I want to get across now, is that it was given at Har Sinai. So Ma'inyan Shemitah Eitel Har Sinai, the answer is, according to this, is that this is the Torah's vision. This is the basis of the Brit, to build a nation. And that is reflected in the mitzvot of Shemitah and Sinai. Now, and Yovel. Now, that's explanation number one. Explanation number two that I want to present to you is an idea put forth by Sharon Rimon, Rabbanit Sharon Rimon. Okay, and we just have a few minutes left, so I'll say most of it outside. She points out something very interesting in the Psukim of Parshat Bechukotai. Sorry, I'm not allowed to move. In Parshat Bechukotai, we saw that I'm going to have to not drink coffee before I teach. In Parshat Bechukotai, it's interesting how the Torah relates the destruction. It's not about the Jewish people. You know what the focal point is when it comes to the klalot? What is the focal point? It's the land. The land is going to become desolate. We happen to live on the land. The land becomes desolate. Okay? Now, on this idea of and we read the psukim inside, haaretz, let me just find the pasuk again. We read the pasuk inside, it went like this, haaretz, v'hashimoti ani et haaretz, and I will destroy the land. Okay? V'hashimoti ani et haaretz actually has a very interesting history. Because, and Rashi points out, that this is a curse, obviously, that God's going to destroy the land. But there's also a blessing here. You know what the blessing is of God destroying the land? The blessing of God destroying the land is that the land will be destroyed, but no one will be able to grow anything on the land except for the Jewish people. Rashi says this. Ramban Ibn Ezra suggests this as well, that there's a promise here, meaning Hashem saying, I'm going to destroy the land, and the land's going to remain desolate. I'm going to make it desolate, it's going to remain desolate until you come back. Okay? And this is something which has been borne out historically. Okay? What was going on here in the 19th century before Jews started coming back from Poland and Russia? There were always Sephardi Jews here, but Ashkenazi Jews. It was all swampland. There was nothing here. Okay? How much did the Arabs who were here develop the land in the last 2,000 years? They weren't here 2,000 years, but since the 7th century, 8th century, it was nothing. It was a desolate land filled with swamps. In fact, I was talking to a friend who said that by Emek Chefer, which is right north of us by Talmud, that has like a little bit of a tourist gimmick, they filled in some of the swamps. And you could go riding on an RV through the swamps. These were the swamps that the original Chalutzim had filled in, here in Eretz Yisrael, the last 100 years. But there's a blessing here in a sense that the land refuses to grow back until we come back. And you also have an account of this. If you look at the bottom here on page 4 to 5, Mark Twain. Mark Twain goes to the land to Eretz Yisrael in, I think it's 1887, and he writes a book called Innocents Abroad. And in this book, he describes Palestine at the time. Top of page 5, a desolate country whose soil is rich enough, but is given over wholly to weeds, a silent, mournful expanse. A desolation is here that not even imagination can grace, with the pomp of life and action. We never saw a human being on the whole route. There was hardly a tree or a shrub anywhere. Even the olive and the cactus, those fast friends of the worthless soil, had almost deserted the country. Okay, so Mark Twain captures exactly what's happening here. And therefore, in contrast, the sign of Geula, as reflected in Sefer Yechezkel Perek Lamed Vav, is that the Jewish people are going to come back, okay, and look at Pasuk Chet Lamed Vav Chet, V'atem harei Yisrael an pechem titenu u'peryechem tisu. We will then bear fruit. We will then grow fruit again. And the land will come back. It will be revived. And in Masechet Ketubot also it says, Avam Rabbi Abba ein lecha keit megula mizeh. There's no better sign of the Gula than Eretz Yisrael, growing fruit again. Okay, that is an amazing, that's a special quality. And that is a sign of Gula. Rav Kook also mentioned this in Yikrot Re'aya. Atchat the Gula v'atay holechet v'fed lefaninu me'az hitchila keit megula degalot et asher harei Yisrael le'echid la'asod anafim la'seit pri la'am Yisrael. Once the land starts reviving, this is a sign that Gula is coming. So there's this ultra sensitivity. There's this reciprocation between the Jewish people and the land. The land only responds to us. We won't respond to anybody else. It's like, I don't know, if you could set up your Siri or something. Siri recognizes your voice. She doesn't recognize your friend's voice, okay? It's a special voice recognition. The land only recognizes us. And guess where else this happened? This intimate connection between the land and the people actually happened for the first time in a place called? No, not Har Sinai, Gan Eden. Gan Eden. What happened in Gan Eden? Look at the bottom of page 5. Okay, we see here that we're told that the land was, in the beginning of Perek Bet of Sefer Bereshit, V'chol siach hasadet terem yitzmach. V'chol esav v'dater tem yitzmach. Sorry. V'chol siach hasadet terem yeh ba'aretz. V'chol esav v'dater titzmach. Ki lo yimter Hashem Elohim al ha'aretz v'adam ayin avodat adamah. Nothing had grown in the land yet. Why? Because Hashem didn't bring any rain. Because man hadn't worked the land. Rashi, what does it mean man didn't work the land? No, man did not. Okay, what does Rashi say avodah is? Because man hadn't prayed and recognized the goodness of the rain and God's handiwork. Until man came along and recognized and davened, Hashem didn't let anything grow. Again, there's this interaction between an individual on the land and the land itself growing. And this is in Gan Eden. And we see this also in Sefer Devarim. What does it say in Sefer Devarim? Okay, the last source here. Hashem telling us He's bringing us to a beautiful land. Eretz harim uvkaot limtar shem tishnayim. Eretz asher Hashem lokach dorish tamid beinei Hashem lokach haba meretz shavila achad shna. A land which Hashem looks upon and focuses on throughout the year. And guess what? Tell me if you recognize these words. V'haya im shamoa tishmu al mitzvotai asher anochi mitzvah etzchem hayom. You recognize that? It's a Shema. What does it say in the Shema? If you don't follow what I say, there won't be any rain. And if you do, we had rain today, by the way, for the first time, right? Okay, Mazal Tov. Right? What do we see? We see that Eretz Yisrael is sensitive only to the Jewish people. And this is true in times of desolation and in times of restoration, in times of Geula. So not keeping Shemitah in the end of Parshat Bechukotai causes the land to become desolate. And then we go through the cycle of Galut, and we're outside of it, and then we come back. And if we start keeping Shemitah, and we start keeping the laws of the land of Israel, then the land is responsive to us, and then things start to grow again. Okay, so we see here a second explanation of how integral Shemitah is to the Brit at Har Sinai and to Judaism in general. Okay? This is not an afterthought. This is Ma'inyan Shemitah Eitzel Har Sinai. It's the ultimate vision of the Torah. Okay, that's the connection. So someone asks you, what's the connection between, China and tea? Ma'inyan Shemitah Eitzel Har Sinai. This is it. This is the ultimate vision for Jewish society, for a nation that Hashem is growing here in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so this is an introduction of the Torah's presentation. The medium is the message. The Torah's presentation of Shemitah and Yovel. And Be'ezrat Hashem, next week we're going to talk about the Ta'amei Mitzvot, other medieval commentators on the rationale behind Shnat HaShemitah. Okay, we'll look at other places where Shemitah is mentioned in the Torah and Tanakh, and we will continue onwards through the course. Wishing you all a great day, yeah? Yes, Nachon. Nachon and Shemitah is at the center of them. Correct, Nachon. Yafem Od Kol HaKavod, everybody. Wishing you all a great day. Yes. No.